Welcome. My name is Ren, and sometimes I draw stuff. So back when I was younger, I really enjoyed watching Winx Club, and I mean, who doesn't love a fun animated magical girl show, right? I eventually grew out of it around the start of like the 4th season, and so I have no idea what's been going on in the show since then, but I've seen some still images of the later animation style, and let's just not talk about that. Anyway, what brought Winx Club back to my attention was actually that extremely well-received Netflix reboot that everyone loved, and that was so good. I can't even say that with a straight face. So I'm going to be honest and say I didn't watch it because it looked pretty bad and I quite frankly didn't want to, but I've seen reviews of it and it does not look good. However, what I did instead of watching that was something a bit more fun for me personally, and that was I took a look at the iconic Winx Club fairy designs from the original show, and I thought about how to redesign them to be a little bit more complex and a little bit more high fantasy themed. Not because there is anything wrong with like the sleek sci-fi fantasy blend of the original, but just because I'm personally a sucker for high fantasy shit, and I love playing with character design. It just gives me the good brain chemical. Anyway, let's talk about the actual designs. I don't actually have a lot to say about Bloom. She was the first character I redesigned, and I went with the obvious route. She has the dragon flame, so let's slap some dragon features onto that fairy. I gave her some wings, some horns, as well as some claws, and to add some more spice to the rest of it, I also threw in some scales along the areas of exposed skin. By the way, this is tangential, but I have no idea why the show decided that the dragon flame was represented by an Eastern style dragon. As far as I can tell, nothing about Dominor or Bloom is otherwise like Asian or Asian inspired coded, and Bloom is like the whitest girl you can find. So instead of that, I went with a Western style dragon because it made a lot more sense to me. If someone knows some deep lore to explain this, please do enlighten me. I'd love to learn, but I'm just keeping it like this. Anyway, I actually really like her original design. It's one of my favorites because of the strong color contrast between her hair and outfit. The cool blue and the warm red, just chef's kiss. A delicious complementary colors at work here. We love to see it. But yeah, that's that for Bloom. So let's move on to Stella. I feel like I took a little bit more liberty with Stella's design compared to Bloom. For one, in what might be considered a controversial decision, I removed her wings from the design. Actually, I removed the wings from everyone's designs except for Bloom and Musa. I think, from a visual design perspective, it's more interesting for the fairies to have more distinctly different traits that actually reflect their powers or origin. It adds some visual interest, and it also helps differentiate their silhouettes a lot better. Not to say that their original designs all have the same silhouette. They're actually fairly distinct and pretty good design-wise, but I thought it would be fun to exaggerate it more, so that's what I did. So for Stella, I did want to keep her iconic top and pants though, because I think that was a genuinely great choice. So they don't just all have the same skirts. It's good, I like it, so I'm keeping it. I still added some flowy fabric, lay it over her basic top and pants to make her design look more extravagant, because, she's a princess. And that's also why I gave her a much more prominent crown than in her typical design. Yeah, another thing I wanted to do was to add more blue to the whole thing. On the one hand, I wanted to highlight that her whole deal is a combination of like sun and moon powers, so the yellow and blue, they're good thematically. And the second one is just about adding more variety to the colors in her design. The standard one already has some bluish silver parts, but they're fairly small and I wanted to make it more prominent. Yeah, I also added in a bunch of jewelry that she didn't have originally because, again, she's royalty. and I changed up the shape of her scepter a little bit to look a bit more detailed and also more high fantasy, and also so it just generally fits more with my personal design sensibilities. I'm pretty happy with her new design. I actually think this design in particular works much better without wings. It's already kind of busy, and adding wings on top of everything that's already going on would make it seem pretty cluttered, and I'm trying to keep these at least somewhat simple in the spirit of the original, but also just for that the design stays readable and you can tell what the fuck is going on. But yeah. Next up is Flora. She's always been one of my favorites, which makes it a little sad that I feel kind of meh about her design. For her, I took a lot of inspiration from dryads and similar nature-related spirits or creatures, whatever you want to call them. Dryads are typically portrayed as a part of nature, even to the extent that they're like fused with the plants around them, or even as a literal manifestation of a specific plant or a specific kind of plant, like either a very specific tree or like a kind of tree. Yeah, so Flora is kind of halfway there already given her nature theme generally, so seemed like an obvious choice to make her into something dryad adjacent. Like with the others, I kept most of the basic shape and colors of her outfit the same. Then I added some vines snaking along her arms and along the bodice of her dress to add a little bit of color variety to it, and I also decided to make her feet appear like similar to roots, but they are not meant to be literal roots, okay? I just thought it would be a cool visual. She is not stuck in one place forever. She can walk around. I am not damning her to just stay and sit around in the woods while all the other fairies get to go on adventures. That would be deeply unfair. It's fine. They're not real roots. They just look that way. They're like covered in bark. I think it would be cool from like a magic powers perspective if she could like use them to connect to the earth and plants around her whenever she chooses to, but please don't ask me how this works. I'm just here for the visuals and vague concepts, okay? I don't really have answers to any questions pertaining to details. I'm here for the vibes. But yeah, I really didn't change much of her design beyond those things, just made her skirt look more like petals from a flower to really hammer home that plant theme. But yeah, that is about it. All in all, it's fine. It's not really my favorite design. Next up is Layla, or Aisha as I think she's called in some localizations, but I know her as Layla, so that is what we are going with. She's always been one of my favorite Winx Club members, both based on her personality and her outfit. I think the green works really well with her warm skin tone and her dark hair. Also, just like the shape design of her outfit, she's just excellent in every aspect. She's just perfect. My favorite. It's actually funny that I like her outfit so much, because mostly I am not very drawn to green in character designs. I'm not like a green hater, it's just not a color that speaks to me a lot when I see it used, but apparently here it does. Anyway, her design is another one where I went with the probably most obvious approach, the approach of turning her into a fish. Layla comes from a planet full of mermaids, the whole place is already water themed, the mermaid route was unavoidable, really. And on top of that, her power is also water adjacent, I guess you could call it. It's basically pink goo, which is multi-purpose. But I think you can count it as kind of a fluid, and I think even in the Netflix series she's just straight up water powered, like she just straight up controls water. So clearly I'm not the only one thinking in this direction, so I'll take that as like, it's fine, it works, whatever. Anyway, I love Layla and I love mermaids, and I am the one who gets to make the decisions around here, so she's a mermaid. Great. None of you can stop me. Yeah, for her mermaid tail, I gave her those pretty fabric like fins that just flow nicely in water so that they kind of blend in with her skirt, and also because I think they just look nice and I want her to look nice. But yeah, there's not really a lot to say about this design otherwise. I love her, I love how she turned out, and even though it's a pretty simple and not very original concept, but what can I do? I love me some mermaids. Any chance I get, I'll make a mermaid. Alright, so let's move on. When I first thought about making these designs a bit more like high fantasy themed, I thought Tekna's design might be hard to translate, but it was actually pretty easy. For her, I went for a wizard-like aesthetic, I'm gonna call it. You know, wizard, like installation wizard, like for computer programs, because, you know, she's tech-themed, you know, you get it. Is this not funny and genius? No, anyway, when I first came up with the concept and the designs, they were much more ambitious and kind of detached from the designs of the show. Back then I wanted her to be like a manifestation of a computer program that can take physical form, and she'd be accompanied by like cool pixelation effects and stuff. Yeah, I didn't end up going with that, but in those designs, that's where the cape first entered her design. It's loosely inspired by the moment in her transformation where it looks like she has like this big green triangle behind her that then folds up and turns into her wings. You know what I mean? Yeah, so that is where the cape comes from. Generally, I'm gonna be honest, I've never really been a fan of Tekna's outfit. It's too samey for my taste. There's just a lot of fabric that is all the same color, and it doesn't have a lot of structure besides being skin tight. It just, it does not appeal to me. I'm sorry, Tekna. Also, the hat, I don't love it. Hat is also not really, I don't like it. So I got rid of the hat, gave her a cape with a hood instead, and I also added some more structure and variety to the suit. Add some green details. Yeah, didn't do that much here besides adding the cape really. Generally, I love Tekna's color scheme. The purple-green combination was very striking. Love that. Again, not a huge fan of the outfit generally though. I did generally want to keep to the spirit of the original design, so hope it's still working for her, even though it's like not quite tech-themed anymore. But not gonna lie, this is probably my favorite redesign out of all of the 6. So, last but not least, we have Musa. So yeah, it turns out I needn't have worried about Tekna, because the design that actually was kind of difficult for me was Musa's. Which is pretty ironic, because I am a sucker for both red and purple, and I've always liked her outfit generally. But somehow I really struggled to translate her vibes accurately, I guess. So here's the issue I had. Obviously, her thing is like music and sound waves, which is, in a more high fantasy context, could be easily represented by like a harp, a flute, or any other more traditional instrument that fits the high fantasy vibe. Or alternatively, if we don't want to go with like props, we could also say songbirds, which combine the whole music, sound, and air theme that her magic has. But I didn't really like that either, because her vibe is more like a DJ. And I know, she plays analog instruments, she's also a great singer, I know she does a lot of different music stuff, but I don't know, it just didn't feel right to me, personally. Ultimately, I did go with the bird theme because I just couldn't think of anything that was more fitting. Also, I skimmed the wiki, and apparently Musa turns into a bird at some point in the show. I don't know what's going on there. Whatever. She's a bird now. We'll just go with it. And really, I don't hate how this one turned out. It doesn't feel quite right. The vibe is just not there. But you know what? You win some, you lose some. You just gotta go with it. I was just vaguely thinking of birds for her design when I showed the designs to a friend, and she mentioned how Musa reminded her of a siren from Greek mythology, which I hadn't even thought about for a second, but it makes so much sense. I wish my brain was more functional, so I could have like incorporated that idea more than it just being like, oh yeah, reminds me of that. But yeah, Musa, bird themed. I gave her some claws and feathers on her arms and legs. Obviously, she also got some fluffy bird wings, because, you know, birds do be flying. She also has 4 wings, because she has 4 of them in the show, in the standard design, even though those are more reminiscent of like dragonfly wings. But we are going with the bird theme, so bird wings it is. In conclusion, I would not say that like she looks any worse than the others, or that the design itself is bad per se, but it's definitely my least favorite design. I don't even know why I'm so hung up on it. It's fine. Like literally, it's fine, but I guess in every collection there's gotta be one that's your least favorite, and unfortunately, in this round, it's Musa. Rip to you, it's not your fault. Anyway, that was all of the girls. Let's have a look at all the finished versions of them. And I would love to hear which one is your personal favorite. As I said, mine is definitely Tecna, because I just love me a cape. And I also like how her whole like design turned out generally. But yeah, that is all for today, and I hope you have a nice day. So yeah, take care.